life sometimes holds up a cruel mirror to us. Moments filled with anger, disappointment, resentment, and frustration come. But what you need to realize at that moment is this: true power lies not in controlling others, but in managing your own emotions, conserving your energy, and remaining true to your values. This is a quiet but profound power. An inner light helps you chart your own course and creates an impact that can even change the chaos around you. The power of emotional intelligence guides you not only in relationships, but in every area of life, at work, within the family, among friends. Understanding people, recognizing their emotions, and being able to express yourself correctly transforms you from an ordinary person into someone respected and influenced by everyone. This power is like gaining years of experience in an instant. However, the difference here is that these skills are learnable. Yes, emotional intelligence is not an innate talent. It is a skill that can be developed step by step through conscious effort. Now pause for a moment and ask yourself, how aware are you of every moment in your life? Are you aware of your reactions, words, and actions? How many times has your anger tested your patience or led you to make wrong decisions? How many opportunities have you lost because you didn't understand the feelings of others? It can be difficult to recognize these things, but that's where growth begins. Emotional intelligence isn't just about reading the emotions of others. It begins with understanding and managing your own inner world. Self-awareness means being aware of every emotion, every reaction, and every trigger. When you observe yourself, you begin to see internal patterns you hadn't noticed before. You discover the source of your anger, the reason for your anxiety, and the story behind your disappointment. This awareness transforms you from a reactive individual into a conscious creator. Every moment in daily life is a test. Interactions with people, career opportunities, social relationships, even promises you make to yourself are all tests. But a person with emotional intelligence sees these tests not as a threat, but as an opportunity. You learn to be silent, to breathe, to focus, and to choose the right response. Every small choice, every conscious action makes you stronger, freer, and more effective. And here's a secret for observers. When people observe you, they sense the quiet power you possess. You don't need to talk much. Choosing your words, conserving your energy, and acting according to your values creates a natural impact on those around you. This isn't artificial power. It's a natural reflection of your being. When you change, the world around you adapts. Grace and strength are intertwined. True grace isn't about trying to impress others. It's about maintaining your own stance, your own center, and your own values. Life's challenges, delays, misunderstandings, or people who test you are opportunities to practice this grace. Every conflict, every obstacle, every misunderstanding offers you a lesson. The important thing is to recognize it and choose your response. The greatest liberating force on this journey is forgiveness. Forgiveness is an act you perform for yourself, not for someone else. Anger, hatred, and revenge are heavy and require energy to sustain. When you forgive, you reclaim that energy and can use it for creation, growth, and peace. Forgiving, forgetting, and letting go of the weight of the past lightens your burden. It liberates your soul. Your daily life will be filled with distractions and challenging people. But know that you can stay centered even in situations beyond your control. Every morning, make a decision. Where will I direct my energy? What thoughts will I focus on? What emotions will I express? These simple questions determine the direction of your life and make you the master of your own destiny. Now I ask you, if this information touched you, reminded you of your own power, and will make a difference in your life, why not subscribe to the channel? Why not carry this awareness journey with you as a guide to constantly remember it? Every piece of information, every technique, every strategy shared here can be a light that takes you one step forward in your own life. Remember, real change begins not only with acquiring knowledge, but also with putting what you learn into practice in your life. Take small steps every day. Be honest with yourself. Observe your reactions. Maintain your energy and focus. As you progress step by step along this path, you will not only become an effective person, but you will also gain deep inner peace and freedom. The second fundamental element of emotional intelligence is self-regulation. This is the ability to consciously manage emotions rather than being enslaved by them. Self-regulation doesn't mean suppressing or ignoring emotions. Rather, it refers to your ability to recognize these emotions and choose your responses when you are angry, anxious, or excited. Individuals with weak self-regulation are tossed around like emotional ping-pong balls from one situation to another. They become aggressive when angry, avoid when anxious, and may make irrational decisions when excited. However, individuals with strong self-regulation feel their emotions but control them, responding strategically and consciously. They can remain calm when angry, take courageous steps when tense, and maintain their composure even when disappointed. This lies in the pause between stimulus and response. In this space, you have the freedom to choose your response. Individuals with emotional intelligence expand this space and take each step consciously. There is a powerful method of putting this into practice. The STOP technique. S represents stopping. T represents breathing. O represents observing what you are feeling. And P represents acting with intention. This four-step process, taking less than 10 seconds, can prevent you from saying a word that could damage your relationships or reputation. Another strategy is reframing. Instead of viewing challenging emotions as problems to be blocked, seeing them as information to be processed, transforming anger, anxiety, and frustration into meaningful data increases your control over your reactions. The third component of emotional intelligence is motivation. This is an internal force driven by your values and goals, independent of external rewards or recognition. People with strong emotional intelligence know and rely on their internal motivation to persevere through challenges and setbacks. For them, decisions are not based on short-term gains or praise. They are based on their values, growth, and making a difference. Internal motivation keeps them going when faced with obstacles and makes them more persistent in achieving long-term goals. The fourth essential element is empathy, the ability to understand and respond to the emotions of others. Empathy is not simply reflecting our own reflections onto others. Empathy is about truly understanding the inner world of others and acting accordingly. It involves noticing micro-expressions, reading subtleties in tone of voice, and understanding body language. Empathetic people constantly gather information about the needs, feelings, and situations of others and respond consciously accordingly. Sometimes they create space, sometimes they offer support, and sometimes they guide with compassion. The important thing is to understand what the other person truly needs and respond appropriately, setting aside your own judgments. And the fifth essential element is social skills. This is the area where all the other elements are applied in practical life. Social skills refer to your ability to communicate, resolve conflicts, manage group dynamics, and make a positive impact on your environment. People with social intelligence behave appropriately in different personalities and situations. They act in a balanced way, sometimes direct, sometimes diplomatic, sometimes withdrawn, and sometimes taking a strong stance. These skills allow those chosen for leadership positions to stand out not only for their technical knowledge, but also for their mastery of social relations. These 5 elements, self-awareness, self-regulation, intrinsic motivation, empathy, and social skills, when combined, not only make you effective and powerful, but also transform you into a graceful, determined, and free individual. Understanding people, remaining calm under pressure, and skillfully managing complex social situations are possible not only through knowledge, but also through continuous practice and conscious awareness. Now, I want to ask you, if this information has enlightened you and you feel it can make a difference in your life, why not subscribe to the channel to gain a lasting guide on this journey? Why not connect with a resource that will help you improve yourself and increase your inner strength every day? This journey is completed by your determination and practice. By taking small steps each day, you can transform both yourself and those around you. Remember, true power lies in silence, awareness, and maintaining inner balance. Real impact comes not only from words, but also from your actions, choices, and conscious behavior. Invest in yourself, manage your emotions, strengthen your relationships, and let your inner light shine. If this journey is valuable to you, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and make this transformation a constant part of your life, because success and effective living begin with awareness and practice. The second fundamental element of emotional intelligence is self-regulation. This is the ability to consciously manage emotions rather than being enslaved by them. Self-regulation doesn't mean suppressing or ignoring emotions. Rather, it refers to your ability to recognize these emotions and choose your responses when you are angry, anxious, or excited. Individuals with weak self-regulation are tossed around like emotional ping-pong balls from one situation to another. They become aggressive when angry, avoid when anxious, and may make irrational decisions when excited. However, individuals with strong self-regulation feel their emotions but control them, responding strategically and consciously. They can remain calm when angry, take courageous steps when tense, and maintain their composure even when disappointed. This lies in the pause between stimulus and response. In this space, you have the freedom to choose your response. Individuals with emotional intelligence expand this space and take each step consciously. There is a powerful method of putting this into practice: the STOP technique. S represents stopping. T represents breathing. O represents observing what you are feeling. And P represents acting with intention. This 4-step process, taking less than 10 seconds, can prevent you from saying a word that could damage your relationships or reputation. Another strategy is reframing. Instead of viewing challenging emotions as problems to be blocked, seeing them as information to be processed, transforming anger, anxiety, and frustration into meaningful data increases your control over your reactions. The third component of emotional intelligence is motivation. This is an internal force driven by your values and goals, independent of external rewards or recognition. People with strong emotional intelligence know and rely on their internal motivation to persevere through challenges and setbacks. For them, decisions are not based on short-term gains or praise. They are based on their values, growth, and making a difference. Internal motivation keeps them going when faced with obstacles and makes them more persistent in achieving long-term goals. The fourth essential element is empathy, the ability to understand and respond to the emotions of others. Empathy is not simply reflecting our own reflections onto others. Empathy is about truly understanding the inner world of others and acting accordingly. It involves noticing micro-expressions, reading subtleties in tone of voice, and understanding body language. Empathetic people constantly gather information about the needs, feelings, and situations of others and respond consciously accordingly. Sometimes they create space, sometimes they offer support, and sometimes they guide with compassion. The important thing is to understand what the other person truly needs and respond appropriately, setting aside your own judgments. And the fifth essential element is social skills. This is the area where all the other elements are applied in practical life. Social skills refer to your ability to communicate, resolve conflicts, manage group dynamics, and make a positive impact on your environment. People with social intelligence behave appropriately in different personalities and situations. They act in a balanced way, sometimes direct, sometimes diplomatic, sometimes withdrawn, and sometimes taking a strong stance. These skills allow those chosen for leadership positions to stand out not only for their technical knowledge, but also for their mastery of social relations. These 5 elements, self-awareness, self-regulation, intrinsic motivation, empathy, and social skills, when combined, not only make you effective and powerful, but also transform you into a graceful, determined, and free individual. Understanding people, remaining calm under pressure, and skillfully managing complex social situations are possible not only through knowledge, but also through continuous practice and conscious awareness. Now I want to ask you, if this information has enlightened you and you feel it can make a difference in your life, why not subscribe to the channel to gain a lasting guide on this journey? Why not connect with a resource that will help you improve yourself and increase your inner strength every day? This journey is completed by your determination and practice. By taking small steps each day, you can transform both yourself and those around you. Remember, true power lies in silence, awareness, and maintaining inner balance. Real impact comes not only from words, but also from your actions, choices, and conscious behavior. Invest in yourself, manage your emotions, strengthen your relationships, and let your inner light shine. If this journey is valuable to you, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and make this transformation a constant part of your life. Because success and effective living begin with awareness and practice. Now, I ask about the dimension. If this information demonstrates the dimension and you believe it will make a difference in your life, why not subscribe to the channel to have a lasting guide on this journey? This information isn't just something to be observed, it's something to be experienced in real life. You can improve your emotional intelligence, awareness, and ability to understand people by taking small steps every day. Invest in the pieces, observe, put them together, and transform both yourself and those around you. by making choices through observation. Remember that true power and impact lie in silence, pause, and waiting. The art of emotional regulation under pressure. The difference between systems that thrive under pressure and someone who falls apart, loses clarity, and makes wrong decisions under the same pressure is not, as most people think, a privilege acquired through higher intelligence, greater talent, or inheritance. The source of this difference is much deeper. It relates to how manageable one's own inner world is. The real difference is the need for emotional regulation. Because we all encounter pressure at certain moments in life. When responsibilities increase, risks rise, expectations become heavier, and the cost of making mistakes increases. It is not our mental capacity that is tested, but our emotional development. It is precisely at these moments that people disintegrate rather than fall apart. There is a group of people whose inner balance is disrupted as pressure increases. These individuals, who can normally cope with small, trouble-free things, struggle to compose themselves when emotions intensify, speak or act impulsively in angry situations, unconsciously avoid conversations they need to face when anxious, and are interrupted when overwhelmed. Instead of reacting, these individuals react without realizing where the emotion they are feeling at that moment is leading them. And this creates an extremely destructive cycle. Increased pressure triggers poor emotional management. Poor management leads to bad results. Bad results create more pressure, and the individual becomes increasingly trapped in this cycle. However, there is also a small group of people who come together instead of disintegrating as pressure increases. Instead of panicking as the crisis drags on, they can maintain their composure, take the right steps, and remain calm amidst the chaos in everyone's minds. These people stay in the background during times of crisis. They are precisely the ones chosen, promoted, given responsibility, and the ones people turn to in difficult times. Because their environment is converging, they are known as reliable and emotionally stable individuals. The common thread among these people is not suppressing emotions, but mastering the art of emotional regulation. Contrary to what many people misunderstand, emotional regulation doesn't mean ignoring expressions, numbness, or erasing one's inner world. Rather, it's the ability to recognize the characteristics of emotions and direct them in a way that allows them to remain hidden. Because emotions are incredibly powerful guides in the right places. They carry energy, provide direction, and show that quantity really matters. The important thing is not to avoid experiencing the emotion, but to choose to deal with it while experiencing it. In other words, it's about creating a brief pause, waiting, and then giving a targeted response instead of reacting with an automatic reflex. The first and most critical step in developing this skill is learning to recognize one's own early warning signs. Every person experiences unique physical and mental changes when their emotional state begins to shift. In some, shoulders tense imperceptibly. In others, breathing becomes shallow. In others, jaws clench. And in others, thoughts flow uncontrollably. While these early warning signs often seem unsettling, they are actually an opportunity, not a problem. Because these signals open a door for you to intervene before life goes on. Because when a person's full emotional response emerges, that is, when anger, anxiety, or overwhelm reaches its peak, regulation becomes much more difficult. However, if you can catch the emotion at an early stage, you can channel your feelings instead of accumulating them. One of the most effective tools for transitioning to this position is what is presented as the details of appearances. When intense emotions arise, the body enters a fight or flight state. Heart rate increases, muscles tense, breathing changes, and the mind becomes trapped in a narrow, focused area. To mitigate this situation, the parasympathetic nervous system, which operates in a distributed safety mode, kicks in. The moment you notice the early warning signal, shift your attention from the outside world to your breath. Breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold your breath for 4 seconds, and then exhale through your mouth in a controlled manner for 6 seconds. The longer the breath-holding period, the more "no danger, you are safe" messages it sends to your brain, calming the nervous system. Repeating this cycle 3 to 5 times will gradually reduce noticeable tension in your body. Then, starting from your head and moving downwards, reduce tension as needed in your forehead, chin, shoulders, arms, chest, abdomen, and legs, because limited physical tension in the body constantly feeds emotional intensity. Also, connect yourself to the present moment using your senses. 5 desires you can see, 4 sounds you can hear, 3 touches you can physically feel, 2 desires you can smell, and 1 purposeful taste you can savor. This simple but effective method eliminates fears and narrative anger accumulating in the mind and brings your awareness back to reality rather than the mind's interpretations. Another cornerstone of emotional regulation is healthy reframing. This skill involves presenting different interpretations of a situation instead of getting stuck on a single meaning, because our emotional responses often stem not from the events themselves, but from the meaning we attribute to them. For example, when someone criticizes your work, your first reaction might be to become defensive or angry. However, this is not the only possible interpretation. Perhaps the person genuinely wants you. Perhaps they are reflecting the extent of their own stress. Perhaps the situation isn't even about improvement, or perhaps it offers an opportunity to consider a different perspective. These reframings don't mean ignoring the criticism. They simply free you from being trapped in a single emotional response. Therefore, emotionally balanced people develop the habit of asking themselves, how else could I interpret this situation, and which of these interpretations would be most beneficial to me? Another powerful component of emotional regulation is preparedness. When an emotionally challenging situation arises, being mentally and emotionally prepared rather than simply hoping to hide well makes a huge difference. Before important conversations, meetings, or presentations, creating potential scenarios that might trigger you and planning how you will respond to these situations protects you from being caught off guard and reacting impulsively. Also, mental visualization, recreating difficult moments in your mind, makes it much easier to remain calm in the real moment. Through these repeated mental rehearsals, the brain creates new neural pathways, and access to these tools is accelerated when needed. The most advanced and nuanced level of emotional regulation is a developable skill known in psychology as the level of emotional detail. However, this is the ability to clearly distinguish what is truly felt, rather than labeling it with general terms like good or bad. The ability to differentiate between the fulfillment of dreams and betrayal, between tension and excitement, is important because one requires a different response. One requires readjusting the plan, setting different boundaries, while the other requires more preparation, and the third requires transforming the performance into actual performance. The more accurately you experience your emotions, the more accurate your reactions will be. And this subtlety will give you a quiet but powerful advantage in both your professional and personal life. Conclusion: the most important lesson to be taken from this video is, pressure doesn't have to break you. With the right skills, you can shape and strengthen it. True strength isn't about staying calm when everything is going well. It's about remaining selectable, even when everything is overwhelming. These abilities don't become perfect overnight, but mindful breathing, concealment, and selective responses will bring you closer to that small but powerful percentage step by step. If this video gave you even a moment to reflect, made you feel that another path is possible under pressure, and contributed a little to your self-awareness, is there really a reason to continue this journey together? Here, we share content on mental strength, emotional balance, resilience, and much more. If you found it helpful, is there really a reason to subscribe to the channel? An unshakable foundation. Self-confidence built on social skills. Self-confidence, contrary to what most people think, is not an innate, mysterious personality trait given to some and not to others. Rather, it is a competence acquired over time, strengthened by experience, and built step by step, especially through social skills. Because a large portion of people perceive self-confidence as either present or absent, they believe that feeling uncomfortable in social situations is an inevitable fate. However, self-confidence is not an abstract emotion, but a natural result of concrete skills. Social self-confidence, in particular, does not suddenly appear one day. It develops through understanding how social interactions work, learning to consciously manage these interactions, and practicing them repeatedly. Therefore, systematically addressing social situations is far more effective than hoping to relax over time, because hope cannot replace skill. Most people unconsciously approach social interactions with a scarcity mindset. They fear saying something wrong, leaving a bad impression, or being rejected, and these fears take over their minds even before the conversation begins. While this state of anxiety may seem innocent, it is actually extremely destructive. Because anxiety increases the likelihood of negative social experiences by making a person less engaged, less natural, and less attractive, thus creating a cycle that further feeds anxiety. However, truly confident people view social interactions from a completely different perspective. For them, these moments are an opportunity, not a test. These individuals focus not on what they can gain from the other person, but on what they can contribute to the interaction. They have a genuine curiosity, and this curiosity makes the other person feel comfortable and valued. But there is a critical point that most people overlook. Authenticity is not built on general positive thoughts or motivational statements. Authenticity is a natural result of mastering specific social skills. Once you understand the fundamental mechanics of social interaction, self-confidence ceases to be something you aim for and becomes a spontaneous byproduct. At the heart of these mechanisms lies what I call authentic self-presentation. Authentic self-presentation means clearly knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you bring to any interaction. Because a person who doesn't know themselves cannot present themselves consistently to others. Many people are so focused on guessing what others expect of them that they never take the time to clarify their own values, strengths, and perspectives. This creates the need to wear a different mask in every situation. However, when you are clear about your values, interests, and strengths, you don't need to reinvent your identity in every situation. You can present yourself as yourself. This consistency creates a sense of confidence and stability that people are unconsciously drawn to. This doesn't mean being rigid or acting the same way in every situation. Rather, your mode of expression adapts to the situation, but your core identity remains constant. A confident person might be more formal in a work environment and more relaxed in a social setting. However, their core values and stance remain unchanged. To cultivate this authentic stance, you need to consciously clarify your personal position. What 3 qualities do you want people to remember you for? What perspective do you bring to conversations? What value do you offer when interacting with people? The answers to these questions are your social compass. Once this clarity is achieved, you can express yourself consistently instead of trying to be a different person in every situation. The second important pillar of social confidence is communication skills. Many people struggle in social situations because they don't know how to create engaging and memorable conversations. Conversations often begin and end superficially. However, confident people know how to ask questions that deepen the conversation. Instead of automatic questions like, "How are you?" they ask questions that make the other person think and feel. Questions that elicit meaningful answers. Furthermore, they know how to contribute to what the other person is saying. They truly listen instead of just waiting for their turn to speak. This conveys the message that the other person is important and deepens the connection. Master speakers also know how to share information about themselves without dominating the conversation. This is called the principle of reciprocity. That is, they express themselves with a depth similar to the depth of opening up of the other person. And this balance creates an interaction where both sides feel heard. Another critical aspect of social confidence is the ability to manage social anxiety in real time. Even confident people can feel nervous in new environments or risky social situations from time to time. The difference is that they don't let this anxiety control them. One of the most effective ways to do this is to shift the focus from the inner world to the outer world. Instead of analyzing how you look, whether you're saying the right things, or what others think of you, give your full attention to the person in front of you. When you have genuine curiosity about the experiences, thoughts, and feelings of the person you're interacting with, you engage more and break the self-centered cycle fueled by anxiety. Another powerful approach is to view social interactions not as a process of seeking validation, but as a space for contribution. Ask yourself, how can the other person feel more comfortable in this interaction? How can I add value to the conversation? How can I make this moment more enjoyable for everyone? When this perspective changes, social interactions cease to be a performance and become a natural flow. Anxiety decreases and self-confidence increases. Physical presence is also a crucial part of this process. Your posture, tone of voice, and body language convey your confidence even before you speak a single word. A confident posture isn't about being dominant or aggressive. It's a calm awareness that allows you to feel you belong and can contribute. When shoulders are relaxed but upright, breathing is regular, eye contact is balanced, and tone of voice is clear, the body supports the mind's message. The most advanced stage of social self-confidence is developing social leadership. This means taking conscious responsibility for the quality of interaction rather than simply hoping conversations will go well. Social leaders don't seek attention. They set the emotional tone of the environment, steer conversations in productive directions, and ensure everyone feels included. Sometimes this is achieved by asking the right question, sometimes by bringing people together, and sometimes by gracefully changing direction when a conversation stalls. Once these skills develop, you don't have to fear awkward silences or boring conversations in social settings because you are in control. And this is where unwavering self-confidence develops. Because now you know, regardless of the context, you know how to contribute, how to connect, and how to maintain balance. This knowledge creates a solid internal self-confidence that doesn't need external validation. Influence without manipulation. The difference between influence and distance is far deeper than most people realize. And whether or not you understand this difference determines whether the pieces you build throughout your life will carry you forward or burn bridges. Manipulation, at its core, is a loss of storage, a self-destructive attempt at growth. And even if it seems to yield quick results, it depletes the trust, respect, and reputation built in the long run. But true influence comes from a different source. Its aim is to create results that move not only you forward, but the process itself. Therefore, people who achieve lasting success in almost every field do not resort to pressure or coercion to guide others, but instead use ethical means. And this is not a naturally occurring talent, but a skill that can be systematically learned. The foundation of this skill is extremely clear. It truly enables human awareness. People don't just make rational decisions and pretend to change their minds. They act first, then replace those feelings with decisions based on logical reasoning. Therefore, if you want to influence someone, simply repeating your presence isn't enough. You need to tap into their emotional motivations. However, there's a fundamental mistake the vast majority of people make. Instead of seeing what the other person wants, needs, and is motivated by, they focus on what they can do. They try to persuade, force, explain, and defend. But you can't convince someone to support an idea, buy a product, or follow a leader without understanding their underlying motivations. Truly effective people always start with these questions. What does this person really care about? What problems are they struggling with? What outcomes would concretely improve their lives? Without finding the answers to these questions, the message is like an arrow that misses its target. Decades of psychological research featured in global reports on influence clearly show that this process is not accidental. The first, and perhaps most misunderstood principle, is reciprocity. People don't reciprocate kindness. However, many people crudely interpret this principle as expecting an immediate, large reward for something small. This is manipulation, not influence. Ethical influence begins with genuinely adding value to therapeutic life without demanding anything in return. Sharing helpful information, connecting the right people, offering genuine support during difficult times, or directing people to resources that solve real problems. The components within these are not actions that yield immediate returns, but ultimately, a strong foundation of well-meaning learners is built. This accumulation is what makes real influence possible. The second fundamental principle is commitment and determination. People want to see consistency between themselves and their actions. When they identify with certain values, behavioral traits consistent with those values increase. Therefore, skilled influencers, instead of directly telling people what to do, give them space to articulate their values aloud. Instead of saying, "You should do this," they ask, "What does professionalism mean to you?" Asking this question creates a much deeper impact, because people want to act according to how they perceive themselves. It's not behavior that makes the impact lasting, it's structure. The third principle is social proof. People want to see what they can do, especially by looking at people who are similar to them or whom they respect. Therefore, social proof works with concrete stories, not abstract statistics. Instead of saying, "Many people do this," saying, "Someone who came from a similar path to you accomplished this and achieved this result," resonates much more strongly in the mind. Once people start seeing this in the story, they become curious elsewhere. The fourth principle is authority. But this authority cannot be built with titles or self-praise. True automation requires being able to solve problems that people can't solve on their own, offering accurate predictions, and sharing valuable insights. You don't tell your competence, you demonstrate it. And interestingly, honestly acknowledging your limitations builds far more trust than a false claim of success. Being able to say, "I'm not an expert on this, but I can refer you to the right person," is a sign of ethical authority and power. The fifth principle is appreciation. The vast majority of people are genuinely understanding, listening, and interested. This doesn't mean creating false compliments or artificial similarities. Rather, it's about recognizing genuine common ground and expressing it naturally. When you show genuine interest in people's experiences, perspectives, and feelings, a visible connection is established. And that connection is far more powerful than influence. The sixth and final principle is scarcity, but in the form of ethical distribution. Genuine scarcity isn't about creating artificial urgency. It's about clearly stating what is truly limited. Saying your time is limited, concealing the fact of genuinely low availability, explaining that an opportunity has a real deadline. This isn't about cornering people. It's about helping them make decisions. The essence of ethical influence is this. It's not about forcing people into something that is bad for them. It's about helping them see how an option aligns with their own values, goals, and interests. Advanced influencers avoid using forceful language and instead ask constructive questions. What changed when they did this? Were you able to stop yourself before? What could you have discovered about yourself if you had taken this step? These questions invite people to grow without resorting to defensiveness. And that's where the most powerful impact comes from. Because the right kind of developmental influence isn't a game with no winners. In the right future, everyone wins. The unseen power of difficult conversations and the consciousness that transforms conflict. A large percentage of people choose to remain silent when a problem arises, fearing that difficult conversations will damage their relationships, lead to misunderstandings, or cause them to lose emotional control. They wait, hoping the problem will resolve itself. But this waiting often doesn't lessen the problems. It makes them more complex, heavier, and much more difficult. What is actually avoided is not the conversation itself, but the emotional stress it can create. Because when people's emotions intensify, and they don't know how to stay calm, think clearly, and maintain distance, they mistake silence for a safe haven. However, invisible cracks form in these patterns of freedom. However, the ability to conduct difficult conversations correctly is one of the most valuable skills that can be developed in both personal and professional life, because this skill allows problems to be addressed before they escalate into crises, the situation to be clarified, and relationships to be maintained on a healthy footing even when disagreements arise. The biggest mistake most people make is that when navigating a difficult path, their goal is not to find a solution, but to be right. Many people prepare, gather evidence, and try to show where the other side is wrong. But difficult conversations are not about winning arguments. They are about common problems that need to be addressed together. Truly effective conversations begin with the right intentions. Everyone should generally ask themselves, what do I want from this conversation? Do I want to change the other person's behavior, understand their perspective, find a common solution, or repair a broken bond? When intention is not clear, the conversation can easily be misinterpreted and devolve into accusations and side issues. However, when intention is clear, the conversation naturally follows a solution-oriented path, and it is crucial to clearly state this intention at the beginning of the conversation and make significant interruptions to prevent the other party from becoming defensive. The fundamental approach that makes difficult conversations healthier is to proceed in a structured way. The first step in this framework is preparation. But this preparation is not about planning to corner the other party, as many of us do. True preparation is about understanding the other party's perspective and considering how to create a safe dialogue environment. Before the conversation begins, considering what kind of pressure the other person might be under, what kind of anxieties they might have, and why the conversation might seem threatening to them, paves the way for starting the conversation with empathy. You also need to prepare your own emotional state, because no conversation conducted with anger, stress, or a defensive attitude leads to real progress. Difficult conversations require calm, focused, and emotionally balanced individuals. Being able to regulate this before signs of distress emerge is far more important than the words themselves. When a conversation begins, creating a safe environment is crucial. Choosing a space where you won't be disturbed, setting the right tone, and starting with a gentle rather than harsh approach determines the fate of the conversation from the outset. Therefore, it is effective to begin with intention rather than anxiety. Instead of accusatory statements, an introduction that highlights the other person's data or strengthens the relationship, reduces defenses, and opens up space for sincere dialogue. Acknowledging information is vital at this point, because when emotions are suppressed or ignored, people cannot think clearly and cooperate. Naming both your own language and the other person's characteristics helps facilitate an emotional shift in the conversation. Hearing the emotion from the combination of words someone says provides a much deeper understanding than superficial expression. Anger often masks fantasies. Productivity often masks pain. And distance often masks overwhelming emotions. Acknowledging emotions is the beginning of the conversation, gradually shifting from accusation to resolution and real progress. Now that they are no longer trying to reconcile their disagreements, they begin to appear together. The most important thing in the cooperation phase is that no decisions are made beforehand about the solution. If one side has already decided what will happen, it is not cooperation, but imposition. And this completely eliminates the other side's participation in the process. Asking open-ended questions makes the other side a part of the solution, not a defensive one. Questions such as, how can we make this situation better? Or, what can be changed to prevent this from happening again in the future? Encourage joint action. Often, the best solutions are not the ones both sides initially agreed upon. True cooperation allows for the emergence of third and more creative options. The final step in the conversation is clarity. When the answers to questions such as who will do what, when it will be done, and how it will be followed up are clear, the conversation provides temporary relief but does not create lasting change. When the next steps are clearly defined, both trust increases and the repetition of the same results is prevented. This ensures that if such a situation arises, it will be based on a more solid and transparent foundation. Difficult conversations don't lead to productivity or coldness. This approach requires compassionate directness. That is, learning to communicate both openly and clearly, without forgetting that the other person is a human being with different perspectives and opinions. These skill processes develop. The more problems a person creates and addresses openly, the more adept they become at managing these conversations. And interestingly, as they move away from sections of difficult conversations, the number of conversations that truly become difficult decreases. Because addressing problems before they escalate, the destructive nature of weakness and increased sales are strengthened not by silence, but by unpretentious communication. Build your social network, not just a list, but a living force. Most people see their social network as a list of people on their computer or in their phone book. A truly powerful network goes beyond simply being a group of people you know, becoming a system that accelerates your networking process, opens doors of opportunity at the most unexpected moments, and makes you feel you're not alone in difficult times. When properly distributed, a social network is not a passive medium, but an entity to build upon. However, a large percentage of people perceive networks as fragmented, collecting business cards, linking connections, or superficial contacts. And these approaches only lead to crowds, not depth. But there is a fundamental difference between networking and relationship building. One approaches it from a transactional perspective, asking, "What does this person bring me?" While the other begins with questions like, "How can I make a meaningful contribution to this person's life?" This gender difference determines the fate of the connections formed. Real and effective sales don't happen during active networking moments, but when people genuinely engage, consistently aim to create value, and are recognized as someone who supports, shares resources with, and helps others. That's the essence of relationship building. This approach often involves a value-first mindset. That is, instead of asking for help, approaching with expectations, or seizing opportunities, you take the first step by offering a meaningful contribution to the other party. Sometimes accurate information, sometimes a helpful introduction, sometimes a resource, and sometimes just genuine interest. However, there's a critical mistake most people make here: defining the value offered according to their own perspective. In reality, true value isn't what you deem important, but the other party's genuine presence and understanding. This requires approaching the other party with genuine curiosity. Without understanding what field someone works in, what problems they're dealing with, what goals they're trying to achieve, what direction they're heading, or what they're interested in outside of work, help offered, even if well-intentioned, often remains superficial and fails to establish a genuine connection. The value that can be offered to people can manifest itself in different ways. Sometimes, information given at the right time, a connection with an important person, a simple resource that solves a problem, and sometimes simply being someone who listens and understands creates a far more powerful impact than expected. One of the most magnificent types of value is opportunity. Helping people see a possibility, a door, or an option they wouldn't have noticed on their own is one of the most powerful elements that deepens relationships in the long run. However, strong relationships aren't built with a single communication. They develop over time, through warmth and repeated positive warmth, and therefore, analyzing relationships requires long-term improvement, not a momentary effort. Maintaining relationships isn't possible by sending generic messages or occasional reminders. Maintaining an effective relationship requires referring to past conversations, sharing information about the other person's interests, and actually remembering them. At this point, systems become more important than relying on memory. Some people use calendar reminders, some take notes, some offer more structured follow-up methods, but what matters are the people who stay home, not the tools. Here, quality matters, not quantity. A smaller number of relationships, rather than a superficial and centralized connection based on mutual respect, shared experiences, and genuine interest, produces far stronger results in the long run. Deep transference requires a transition from professional transference. This doesn't mean being close friends with everyone, but rather seeing and feeling the other person as a human being, not just in their role. This involves knowing a wide range of professional interests and personal achievements, paying attention to details and important moments, understanding the mechanics of relationships, and establishing a human connection. One of the most powerful tools for building strategic relationships is bringing the right people together. Encounters where both individuals can genuinely benefit and maintain their connections create mutually beneficial opportunities and build trust, making you a reliable partner. These encounters should be planned, not random. Healthy introductions, follow-up, and problem-solving build resilience. Diversity is another crucial element of networking. Encounters that bring you together with people from different cities, backgrounds, and levels of experience and seniority create perspectives and opportunities that a single setting cannot capture. Relationships may not yield immediate tangible results, but evolving values multiply, and a bond formed today can play a role in a relationship that unexpectedly ends years later. Authenticity is at the heart of this process. People can tell if communication is sincere or purely selfish, and the strongest relationships develop when the other person trusts that you are genuinely interested. Genuine interest is the foundation of long-term and mutual value. People connect not just because they benefit, but because they feel valued. Perhaps the essence of it all is this: a strong social network is something that is nurtured, not built. It requires patience, attention, and sincerity. Most people in a crowd go about their lives without noticing much of the emotional information they encounter, only seeing what is on the surface. Because people generally focus on loud reactions, openly expressed emotions, and obvious body language, whereas a person's true inner world is often silent, veiled, and can only be read by those who are attentive. This is precisely where advanced emotional deformation comes into play. It is the ability to perceive not only what is said, but how it is said. what happens in the body while it is being said, how the energy of the environment fluctuates, and the difference between the surface and the true emotions seeping from the subconscious, all simultaneously, without losing your connection as a human being. True masters of emotional intelligence can notice micro changes that they completely miss. An almost imperceptible change in tone of voice, shallow breathing, a slight tension in the shoulders, or an inexplicable change in the overall atmosphere of the room are powerful signals for them. Because emotions do not flow through a single channel, even if the human mind tries to hide something, emotion seeps through elsewhere. Facial expressions may be controlled, but tone of voice can betray the truth. A person may be confident in their position, but their breathing may reveal inner anxiety. Words may be hopeful, but the energy a person radiates may feel weary and dull. Advanced regulation doesn't treat any of these connections in isolation. It requires reading them all simultaneously, noticing the harmony or disharmony between them. It is at this point that the cracks between what a person says and what they feel become visible, and true emotional needs begin to reveal themselves from behind the masks. Changes in tone of voice are one of the most powerful examples of this. Most people simply hear the words. Individuals with high activity and emotional energy pay attention to the rhythm, tone, energy, and continuity of the voice. Genuine emotion is revealed in the natural fluctuation of the voice. Artificial emotion is often manifested through forced intonations and inconsistent energy. Similarly, micro-questions, brief pauses, and drops in tone are small but powerful traces of uncertainty or inner conflict a person is experiencing. These inconsistencies stem from a person's attempt to bridge the gap between what they think and what they feel at any cost. Breathing patterns are also one of the most accurate indicators of a person's emotional state. When a person wants to feel safe and comfortable, their breathing deepens and becomes rhythmic. When stress and anxiety increase, breathing becomes shallow, rapid, and irregular. During moments of anger or suppressed resentment, breathing becomes more controlled, forceful, and constricted. These changes often manifest as subtle, unconscious adjustments in the shoulders, chest movements, or proportions of a person. Even if the person tries to appear calm, they continue to whisper. Energy calibration is perhaps the deepest layer of this ability. The ability to perceive the overall emotional space created within a person even before words and body language. Some people radiate confidence when noticed. Others cause tension around them without saying anything. Some people's energy increases in a group, conversations open up, and people live more vibrantly. Others radiate weariness, restlessness, or discomfort without any silence. The most important indicator in this case is how powerful you are when you are with others. Do you feel stronger or smaller in someone's presence? Do you become more reserved or more open-minded? Do you become more hopeful, or do you reveal the weight within you? Often, these reactions are a manifestation of the emotional energy that the other person unconsciously reflects. Those with advanced calibration skills can read not only individuals, but a wide variety of people. Even when everyone is silent, even when a meeting seems harmonious, but is inwardly disorganized, they can discern what might emerge in the presence of a single person. Context calibration teaches people to conform to a single pattern. The same person might be energetic and outspoken in casual conversations, but more cautious and introverted in formal settings. They might speak fluently in their own field, but hesitate on a subject they don't know. True mastery lies not in seeing these differences in detail, but in understanding them as a natural part of human nature. This is one of the most fundamental skills. Perhaps the most sensitive point of calibration is reducing the discrepancy between a person's facial expression when around them and their true subconscious emotional state. People who say, "I'm fine," but tell a different story might actually be using a way to silently ask for help. The maturing process in such moments isn't about immediately exposing this discrepancy, but about creating a safe space for the other person. Asking open-ended, non-judgmental questions. How do you really feel about this? Or, do you have a concern you haven't yet voiced? Statements like these allow the masks to fall. Developing this ability involves understanding the speed at which people heal emotionally. Some people get over their experiences by talking them through immediately, while others need alone time first. Some heal quickly, while others need time in pieces. When you see these individual differences, you can be there at the right time and in the right way, rather than giving the wrong support at the wrong time. The development of this skill is not accidental. It requires practice, attention, and feedback and training. It's not about observing people and situations and then testing their emotional state through conversation. It's about sharpening your perception by recognizing when you need to work correctly and which situations you're missing. But there's something crucial to remember. This skill is used with ethical responsibility. Emotional attunement is about understanding, not change. The goal here is not to control people, but to approach them in a more humane, sensitive, and authentic way. And perhaps the deepest meaning of this journey is this: when you truly see people, you realize they're experiencing things too. Now ask yourself this question: are you truly listening to the people in your life, or are you only hearing them to a certain extent? How many times have you continued on your way without noticing the crack in someone's voice, the heaviness in their breath, or the weariness in their energy? If this has added something to this dimension, if it has given you a feeling of going deeper, then it's not just information, it's an invitation. It uncovers more hidden data, forges more genuine connections, and is an invitation to touch people beyond their surface. And if this content gained by stepping away from this dimension is beneficial on this journey, ask yourself, why don't we continue to delve deeper into this knowledge? Why don't we move forward together on this path? If you are here, it's no coincidence. If you want more people to have access to this content, subscribing to the channel isn't just a click. Staying here is silent support. The idea that emotions are ideas may seem abstract or metaphorical to most people, but it's not just a psychological analogy. It's a concrete reality based on human biology and the nervous system. Whether you're exchanging information with someone or not, your body and mind automatically react to their emotional state. The inexplicable wave of vitality you feel when you're around an enthusiastic person, the rush of information in your chest when you're spending time with an anxious person, or the slowing down and balancing of your mind when you're calm and confident while talking. These are the clearest examples of emotional contagion in daily life. When people interact, they don't just exchange words. They also transmit their emotional state through their bodies, voices, gazes, and the overall energy of their being. This phenomenon is called emotional contagion, And for those unaware, this process is often uncontrollable and exhausting. Most people unconsciously absorb the oppressive emotional atmosphere around them. They enter an environment full of stressed people and can't understand why they can't cope. They spend time with those who constantly think negatively and question why their moods are progressively worsening. These people are like emotional sponges. They cannot distinguish what is their own from what sets them apart from others. However, individuals with advanced emotional intelligence know that contagion is not merely a passive process, but a two-way and manageable interaction. Instead of unconsciously absorbing negativity, they learn to protect their own emotional boundaries, while simultaneously creating a balancing and uplifting effect in the environment. This is where emotional management comes into play, because some people change the atmosphere by entering a room without saying a word. This effect, which reduces fragmentation, brings order to chaos, and allows people to think more clearly and behave more calmly, is not accidental. Behind emotional contagion are mirror reflections that are automatically activated when observed individually. This system causes us to feel a milder version of the emotion the other person is experiencing, and this process happens much faster than logical thinking, even slower than sleeping at home. Therefore, when someone's emotional state changes, your presence continues, and you begin to adapt to that state. In this way, the emotional state you are interacting with has a much greater impact than you might imagine. When you are truly enthusiastic, those around you begin to feel more alive and energetic. When you carry genuine calmness, even those under pressure unconsciously relax. When you listen with genuine curiosity, the other person becomes more open, creative, and courageous. Your emotional radiance sets the tone for the entire interaction. However, there is a critical distinction here. It is not artificial emotions that matter, but the examination of genuine emotions. People can sense whether enthusiasm is genuine or forced, even if they are swept up in it. False emotions create hostility instead of trust and accumulate hidden resentment. Therefore, the first step to creating a positive emotional impact is not to pretend, but to genuinely regulate your own emotional shifts. This is not about pretending everything is all right, but about finding a genuine perspective within a changing situation, even if everything is not all right. Purposeful reframing achieves exactly this. Instead of viewing a difficult conversation as a threat, treating diversity as an opportunity for deepening, seeing an ongoing project not merely as a burden, but as a learning environment that will develop you, ensures that the positive emotion generated is sustainable and not artificial. When these emotions are connected to things you truly value, the outward impact is natural and powerful. Furthermore, your loss is a significant carrier of emotional loss. Your posture, breath, movements, and voice both strengthen and protect your awareness. If you want to create a calming effect, instead of reducing the space your body occupies, pausing frequently, deepening your breath, and adjusting your movements will make a noticeable difference. If you want to radiate calmness, relaxing your facial muscles, maintaining soft but consistent eye contact, and using a measured tone of voice will slow down the emotional rhythm of the environment. However, energy management is essential for this effect to be sustainable. It is impossible for an emotionally exhausted person to consistently create a balancing and invigorating effect. Therefore, you should think of yourself as an emotional athlete who needs to perform. Maintaining your overall health, reducing stress, engaging in truly energizing activities, and building emotional reserves is the responsibility not only of you, but of everyone you interact with. Improved emotional contagion skills also encompass group dynamics. Every group has an emotional tone, often unconsciously, stemming from conformity pressures, and this tone doesn't always serve the group's purpose. Creativity can suddenly become dominant in a situation requiring calm analysis, while anxiety can dominate a collaborative expansion. Emotionally competent individuals can discern this tone and transform it into a sleep-like state. This isn't about disrupting seriousness with inappropriate cheerfulness or displaying artificial positivity in the face of bad news. It's about sensing what emotional energy is necessary to produce the healthiest outcome. If a group decision can't be reached, a sense of decisiveness and direction can be introduced. If there's haste, a slow and thoughtful energy can be offered. If defensiveness prevails, a foundation for cooperation can be laid by making everyone aware of the common goal. The essence of ethical emotional influence lies here. The emotions you radiate serve not only the scale, but also the long-term interests of everyone involved in the communication. The goal isn't to direct people, but to create space for them to think more clearly, make healthier decisions, and better utilize their potential. It's also important to remember that emotional contagion is amplified by storytelling. Stories of resilience and overcoming challenges make people more resilient. Examples of innovation make people bolder, and narratives of trust and cooperation bring people together, making them more open. And finally, it's important to understand that emotional growth is not just a skill, but also a heavy responsibility. When people are affected by your emotional shift, the task of your ethical compass is to guide, empower, and rescue them from that influence. Emotional contagion isn't about controlling people. It's about helping them become more balanced and stronger.